Okay, I'm back here now. I have my mold that I made. If you didn't see that video, I'll put a link in the description of this video. I made this silicone mold myself from some two-part silicone mix, and I'll give you a quick view here of what it looks like in there. You can see the mold turned out pretty good. It's nice and glossy. There is like a little bit of like fogginess from I think the mold release there. But I think that won't be too much of a problem. We'll see when the epoxy actually cures what it looks like. Okay, in my cup, I have 50, 70, and 90 milliliter markings. I only need 60, but to make this easy, I'm gonna make 90 milliliters total of this. It's okay if it's a little bit thicker actually, probably, because I want to stick this down in there. Hopefully most of those will float up to the top before I'm done. And I'm gonna pour part B in here up to the 90. This one is a lot thinner, so I'm gonna actually have some trouble pouring this. So I'm gonna do it kind of like this. All right, so I've actually stirred this for 8 minutes now, because technically it does say that it does say that you're supposed to let it, or mix it for 5 minutes and then transfer it to another container and then mix it for another 3 minutes. But I don't want to do that. So I did this, I just extra stirred it for the full 8 minutes, even though I didn't transfer a container. So what I'm gonna do now is before I pour it into my mold, I'm going to let the bubbles rise and get rid of them with this torch method that I watched online. So I'm going to pour this in here very carefully. I have no idea if this is level, to be honest, so we'll just see how this goes. So we'll see what happens. I guess we'll just give this a shot. Be real careful here to pour slowly, trying not to introduce any more bubbles. Okay, so I've got this poured here. I'm going to leave this overnight. I'm going to cover it with something, probably just like a piece of paper so it doesn't get dust in it. And I'll come back in the morning. I'll use this cup sort of as my trial with the stick to see how tacky or hard it is. I'll come back in the morning and see how it feels. Okay. My phone. All right, so it's been a little under 24 hours, and if you look, see if I can get a good view here. This is like quite tacky, and I actually have this is definitely solidified, but it's not hard yet. And if you look, I don't know if you can see, there is a little hair, maybe a dog hair. Let's see if I can get it so you can see it in here. So this is still tacky, so I believe I should be able to very carefully pluck this out with a pair of tweezers, and it shouldn't affect the uh, quality at all here. There we go. So I got the hair out, and there was another little something in here. Let me do this. So what I want to do is I want to essentially press a little, I don't know, black thing in here, like a little piece of dirt or something. It's weird. It's like hard can't. It's like, yes, kind of when you suck on the sucker for a while, and it's not quite hard, but it's not quite soft either. So I'm going to gently and very carefully place this right in the middle, and I'm going to try to do it as perfectly as possible. Let's see here, and it should just kind of sink in. It's very gummy right now. So what I want to do is just press this in. and you can see, I'm going to take this camera. I'm just pressing it in. You can see it's like kind of coming up over the edges here. If I kind of squeeze this in and kind of see it sort of squishing all around there. And I'm going to let that just kind of like sit and relax. I hope there's no air bubbles underneath this. I kind of tried to roll it in as I set it down. But I'm going to let this sit here. So let's see. That looks pretty centered. It's maybe a little tall here. Try to push it down a little bit. But yeah, you can see it's kind of like stretching around this. It's a very odd consistency right now. So put this guy back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some more epoxy here now. So I want to essentially double the amount of epoxy that I had last time. And I'm going to just pour this in carefully. So let me take the stick out here. And you can just enjoy this. Very carefully and very slowly, so that as far as I can tell, all the cracks and crevices and everything underneath all of the chips get completely filled up, so that way as it cures, no bubbles kind of sneak out, and as it begins to kind of solidify and harden, hopefully any bubbles that do escape come out now instead of halfway through when it's already kind of gummy and then you end up seeing them. It looks like the headers are actually filling up, so that's good. I was hoping there'd be enough space that they would fill in from the underside. So it looks like they probably will fill themselves. I'm going to be very careful with this part because I want it to completely cover. Oh, there we go. That was kind of satisfying. The entire chip. See all those bubbles coming off? It's a little bit what I was worried about. This is my first time, so it's okay. But I want to make sure all those bubbles come out before it cures. Something tells me they're not going to, but that'll be okay. Like I said, this is the first time I've done this, so it appears, at least right now, that having the epoxy this gummy right now is definitely helping the Arduino to stick in there. It doesn't appear to be floating at all. In fact, if you look at this, like other than the bubbles in there, you would think you were looking through air, I think, for the most part. So, okay, I've got this poured. I'm going to now let it sit and cure the rest of the way, and then we'll see when we come back and it's all done. Okay, it has been 72 hours since I cast this. You can see, I think it actually looks pretty good. So definitely hard. So I'm just gonna carefully peel this off. It's kind of cool. You can kind of see it separate. I want to be careful with the mold here. I don't want to rip it. I don't know how strong it is, to be totally honest. Oh, it comes right out nice and easy. Just want to make sure I don't. The corner is actually quite sharp, so I want to make sure I don't cut it or rip it or tear it or poke a hole through it or anything. So I'm just gonna wiggle it out here. Oh, that's pretty cool. So definitely one thing I noticed, that texture definitely does show up from the bottom of the mold. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that's the mold release, but I'm actually gonna buff that out. One of the things that I notice here immediately is definitely can see some bubbles in here, and you can actually see the seam between the two layers. I'm not sure, I don't think that's supposed to happen. So I probably did something wrong, but I'd say not too bad for my first shot. Definitely a little cloudy on this side, like I said, from that mold release, but I'll sand this and buff it out. And I think we're just kind of stuck with the bubbles for now. So, but in general, pretty cool. I'm happy with how it turned out.